Hello there. Welcome to the second in a three-part series covering the Bigme S6 Plus Lite. And this is an 8-inch color e-reader using the Eink technology. So this particular video is going to focus on what I call a visual tour. So we're going to focus on the device for almost the entirety of the video. Going to walk through the different aspects of the UI as well as aspects of the different apps that come on the device. And then just kind of give a real tour so that at the end of the video, you have a real sense of what it's like to kind of interact with the device. That's kind of the idea of this. This is, again, the second part of a three-part series. The first part was regarding the hardware and the unboxing, so we gave a sense of that. And then the third part of the series will be the formal review, and I'll also focus in depth on how this device compares to the Books Tab Mini C, which I think is the direct competitor, and has the opportunity potentially to dethrone as my e-reader of choice for 8-inch color e-reading. So we'll see, but that's basically how this series is laid out. One thing I just want to point out, as I pointed out in the first video, is this device was given to me by Bigme. I'll get to keep it for review purposes, but as always, I have no limitations on the review that I'm about to give. All these opinions are mine, and if I see things I like, I'm going to say that, and if I see things I don't like, I will mention that as well. So no limitations there, I assure you. All right, with that, why don't we just go ahead and dive on in. So I thought I'd start the tour here. This is the default screensaver on the device. This can actually be changed quite easily. But I think it's interesting to kind of begin our tour here because this really encapsulates almost everything you need to know about Kaleido 3. So let me explain. Actually, just before I get into that, you'll notice that there is some Chinese writing here. That basically reads, the creator of smart office notebooks with color e-ink screens, or color ink screens, that is. You'll see a little bit of Chinese as you go through the device. It's nothing that gets in the way, and it's not a concern. But instead of focusing on that, what I want you to focus on is look at the text, whether it's in English or Chinese. Look how sharp that is. You know, that's all in 300 ppi. So very sharp. But if you look at the colors, you know, the initial reaction to the colors is, you know, they look pretty nice. But if you look closer at them, particularly say this lavender box, you can see a little bit of the graininess. It doesn't have the definition that you have on black and white, and that's, you know, inherent in Kaleido 3. Black and white is 300 ppi, color is 150 ppi. The other thing that really stands out about Kaleido 3 is the darkness of the background. So let's use an example of another device. And here we have the Kindle Paperwhite. Let me make sure there's no brightness on the screen. So this is the screen just with that. Neither screen has any front lighting on currently. And you can just see how different it is. Look at how the darkness of the gray versus the lightness of this. This almost looks like it has front lighting on it, but it doesn't. And again, that's because the way Kaleido 3 works is there's a color filter above the Carta screen, and so it makes the background darker. You know, for some people, the darkness of this background is a really big deal. You know, you have to use front lighting more often, particularly in indoor situations, so that's one downside of that. Some people don't like the contrast of it. They think it's much easier to read, you know, on a lighter background, as we have here. My personal opinion, I don't mind it at all. You know, if you ask me which screen do I prefer in terms of the background, yeah, I probably would say this one. But I don't find reading on this screen to be a negative at all. I don't think that those issues really are particularly concerning for me, but your mileage will totally vary. Anyway, for the rest of the demonstration, as we go through the device, we'll actually turn front lighting on so you can have a better view. And again, we wouldn't need to do that if I were doing the demonstration here, so that is a factor. The one last thing I'll say about Kaleido 3, and it's not represented here necessarily, but the color accuracy is also an issue. I actually think that Kaleido 3 does an extraordinary job of displaying colors, but its palette is limited to 4,000 colors. So, if anytime you have the actual version of what's being reproduced on the screen, you're always going to notice, or most of the time, you'll notice color differences between the two. And that's just par for the course with Kaleido. It's not specific to this particular device. It's specific to the technology and all devices that use Kaleido 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn this on. As I mentioned, we'll have front lighting on. I kind of went with this combination because it's not too bright and it kind of gives a light, almost white background when it's on. If I swipe down, you'll see that I'm about on 0.10. That's out of 36. 36 is the max. So 10 on warm lighting and 21 on cold lighting. And that's what produces this lighting effect, which I think is pretty nice. Now we're going to begin in the settings section of this device. And we'll start off with about the device. So this again is the S6 Color Plus. Again, another example of you have some Chinese characters there, but they're not in the way. What I find particularly intriguing, I've reviewed other Bigme devices before, and they don't have this particular system version. So this is a specific version related to the S6. So I'm particularly curious if that means there'll be fewer bugs and more stability with the device than I've seen in prior devices. So we'll keep a lookout for that. It is running Android 11. As we said in the previous video, we've got a 2.3 gigahertz octa-core processor with 4 gigabytes of RAM. And has 64 gigabytes of storage, of which almost 50 is available pretty much from the get-go. There is a user manual here, so as we go through, we'll come across some tutorials, and we'll just X out of those tutorials, but if we needed to go back to them, this is one place where we would find that information. Okay. If you had a Bigme account, you would sign in here, and that allows you to do cloud backup of the files that you have on the device. It also backs up the notes on the device. This is where you connect to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth networks. That's pretty straightforward, so I won't go into that into depth. But yes, you can connect to the Bluetooth audio devices like earbuds, or even a Bluetooth keyboard, believe it or not. I'm not sure why you'd want to use a Bluetooth keyboard on this, but it is something that you could do. The next section is around first your stylus. So if we click on that, you can connect your stylus that hasn't been connected already. And again, that's only for the Bluetooth buttons that's relevant. The actual writing of the stylus is passive. It does not require a charge. This is a Wacom EMR tip, so no charge is required. So only the Bluetooth buttons, and that's what it's referring to when it says connect. You can also calibrate your stylus, and then what's called key settings, and that's where you can tell it what you want these buttons to do. There's not a wide variety. The page up, which I think is this one, you can either have it do a paging function or handwriting eraser function. Same with the other button. That's it. A little more flexibility on the power button. So here I have a single click as a refresh of the screen. But I could have also picked any of these other items to program that particular button, including nothing. I could have nothing, but I decided to use refresh. And then a long press, in this case, is the power key. But again, there are a number of options there as well. This page key definition is related to basically the cover. So you might recall from the previous video, there's a cover, here it is, and there's buttons on that cover, like so. So those buttons can be defined here. There is a limitation on the page up, page down functionality. Not every application uses that, but we'll explore that later. You do have a number of ways to kind of manage power, how much time it takes to go to sleep. You can set that, and those are your options there. You can also have full shutdown. So let me pause here for a second. If a device is on sleep, it means that I can just press the power button and it will come back on in 1 or 2 seconds. So that's what sleep mode does for you. It does reduce the power draw, so that's the advantage of that. But it doesn't save, but it still does drain the battery. Shutdown mode pretty much preserves the battery, at least over a short period of time. So it's almost the equivalent of completely powering down. The downside of that, of course, is if you go into shutdown mode and then you press the power button, you have to go through the boot up sequence. I haven't timed the boot up sequence on this device, but they tend to be around 30 seconds. I'll have to time that at a later point just to validate it here. But that's the downer of having this mode, is you have to wait as opposed to just jumping right in to use the device. There are other power management features. For example, the cover is by default set to wake up the device. So if I have the cover closed, it will shut the device off. And if I open it, it'll turn it on. I can deactivate that here. They also have some toggles around how long it takes for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to come off. I'm presuming this is in case you accidentally shut off the device, and so you don't have to go through the process of reconnecting in that case. That's just my guess. There's a couple other options here around performance and power save mode. In my past, working with Bigme devices, power save mode is always the better option. And I haven't seen a lot of advantages with performance mode. I'll keep an eye out for that as I do continuous testing. But for the most part, going on power save mode is the better bet. Then you move to the home screen style. So the style we have currently is what's called an app style, or tablet style in this case. There's also an office style. So let's go ahead and click on that. And this is what that looks like. So it gives you icons on the left bar, which you can scroll up or down, like so. And your apps are now in an app center. So basically what happens is a number of apps that would have appeared here end up on the sidebar instead. So if we go back to, so you'll notice we're 1 of 1 and we're about 3 apps shy of a full page. If I go back to the other view, now suddenly, not only do we not have the sidebar, but we now have 2 pages of apps, like so. I prefer this mode myself, but they're both perfectly fine. Let's keep going. Do you have language options here? So let's just kind of scroll through so you can see all the options. And it's a pretty extensive list. Like so. You can play around with the system font size. I have mine at normal, but you can make it larger. In fact, we can see up there the difference between the 3 modes. Normal's fine. Set the date and time. I have to reset this to my time zone. And then you can see the date and time is displayed up there. You can have different keyboards. The default is an Android keyboard. And then there's just various settings. It's no different than what you'd see in other Android applications. Here you can either turn on or off auto rotation. That's also available in the drop-down bar. Gesture settings, as we went through the setup process in the previous video, this is exactly what we saw. And as noted, you can turn them each individually on and off. And in the case of the swipe up gestures as well as the sliding gestures, you have some customization. So this is the swiping from the bottom, and then swiping from the side, it's a little more limited down to volume and the lighting. You can set a password for the device, either just a normal password, and I think you can do a PIN. Oh, you have to, so to do the password, you're going to have an account. I don't have an account. Let's see if that's true for fingerprint. Yeah, fingerprint as well. I don't protect my devices, so I haven't initiated this. Here you have the ability to log into Google service. Now, I actually have not logged in through this menu setting. I just logged into Google Play. Works just fine. I'm not sure why I would want to log in here. Presumably there's other services, but if I download a Google app, it's connected to my account, so I'm not sure what the value of that is. Here under account management, you can connect to OneNote and something called Baidu NetDisk. I'm certainly not familiar with the latter. The former I've tried in the past without a lot of success. You're better off if you're using OneNote to just use OneNote on the device as opposed to trying to connect your notes from the device into OneNote. So my experience with this feature has not been particularly good, and I would recommend against using it. You can do a system update, and we are up to date. Thank you. You can send a log, so you can type in, and this is where the Bluetooth keyboard actually might make sense. So if you connect it to a Bluetooth keyboard, you can type in your issue and send it directly to Bigme. Here under After Sales Service, this is where you can connect via other means using these QR codes. And we started off with about the device. So that's all the settings of the device in a nutshell. Let's go ahead and return to the home screen. All right, continuing our exploration of the UI. The top bar, these are all interactive buttons, except for the battery icon indicator. That actually doesn't take you anywhere. The home button is what you think it is. It would take you to the home screen. We're already there, so it won't do anything now. But if you click on the this little kind of sun, half-shaded sun icon, that's your e-ink center. And a lot of different options available here. In this particular case, because we are not in an application, we just see the default options. But if we were in an application, there would be another tab for app optimization. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail later. Might even do that in the next video over. But basically, it's a way that you can make specific changes to particular apps. Now, just as a quick overview, there are various refresh modes that are available on the device. In my personal experience, very little difference between the two HD modes. Those pretty much behave the same. Very little difference between normal, fast, and extreme. Those pretty much behave the same. And Regal I do find to be better with color content, like comic books and what have you. But for the most part, I'm using normal fast mode. And that's the best balance, in my opinion, between refreshing the device, scrolling on the device, and quality. So why don't we just take a quick look at that, for example. So maybe we can focus on these applications up above. So look at the color, a little bit of graininess. Let's go ahead and move up to HD 256 and see how that changes. So it does get a little bit better. It just seems a little more solid. A little bit of the graininess goes away, but it becomes choppy. And we'll take a look at that later. But basically, normally, I'm going to operate this in normal fast mode. And that also introduces, when you move away from these top three and you select either of these, it introduces this auto clean mode, which is their way of trying to improve ghosting. We'll do a detailed overview of ghosting on this device versus the Mini C, so I won't go into a lot of detail on that here. But this is basically their answer from a software perspective to what Books does with the Tab series, which has that graphical processor. I did a video on this toward the end of last year, and basically what I found is that there's pros and cons to each methodology, believe it or not. And so your winner would depend on the things that you're more interested in. But overall, I found it was a tie. I was super impressed with what Bigme was able to do from a software perspective. You can change your refresh frequencies. I tend to set mine to 0 because I have the swipe motion to refresh just like that. I also have it set on my Bluetooth device. So instead of having it refresh on any particular number of clicks, I set it to 0, but you can set it all the way up to 50. And when you hit the 50th click or what have you, then it'll just refresh automatically, and you can set it anywhere between 0 and 50. There's a number of sliders down here around dark enhancement, vivid enhancement, and color brightness. And these different buttons basically are different combinations of that. So if we go to magazine, you see that dark enhancement went down. Comic, vivid enhancement goes to 100, dark enhancement goes up to 30, and custom is wherever you left the is basically anything else. So if I go to color brightness, that becomes custom. It doesn't save that. So if I go back to magazine and then I click on custom, see it remains the same. So it's not a preset. Custom just means any configuration not represented by those three. That's different from front lighting, as we'll see later, which does save it in the preset. I'm actually not as familiar with anti-shake. I'm going to have to do a bit more research on that, and I will do so and comment on that later. Continuing on the shortcut buttons, there is kind of an app tray. So I don't have anything open currently, but if I did, let's actually go ahead and open up an app just to show this in action. We'll start with app management. We'll open up the browser like so. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and go home. And now let's go back in. So now you see they're both open. A couple ways that I can close these. I can do these. I can actually click on either one to go straight in, or I can X out each one individually, or I can use this little dustbin tray to clear them all out. Let's do that. And there we go. Okay, this button isn't going to be that particularly useful because we are in an app mode, but if we were in office mode, it would basically take us to our apps list. This gear is the settings, which we just went through in quite a bit of detail. This down arrow here is basically the drop-down tray. We'll get to that in just a second. You've got a back arrow here. Clicking on the time, date and time, actually takes you to the home screen, oddly, and then clicking on the Wi-Fi button does give you the list of available Wi-Fi networks. Okay, let's take a closer look at that drop-down bar. There's a couple buttons here to toggle on and off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth respectively. You've got another shortcut to the E-Ink Center, exact same functionality as what we saw earlier. Global handwriting, pretty cool feature. We'll go into a little bit more depth on that, probably in the next video. You can do split screen. So if we click on that, here's a tutorial, which we'll go ahead and X out of. You can start split screen and you can swap positions. Quite a few things can handle split screen. You do need to be in an app though. So let's go ahead and go into our browser for an example. We'll scroll down, click on split screen, start it. And now it's going to default to a note-taking application. And this is actually a subset of their main note-taking application. You can also do voice dictation into notes. And then your apps are listed here. Here we go. And quite a few apps are available. And we'll just kind of scroll through that to see all the apps. It's almost all of them. So quite a selection. And I should point out that the Kindle app without the Chinese writing and the Kobo app I downloaded from the Google Play Store. So as you download apps, there's a good chance it'll be available here in split screen mode. I'm going to go ahead and get out like so. Okay. Again, this button exactly the same as the shortcut up here. You can take a screenshot. So whatever you're looking at, you can take a quick screenshot, and this will actually be applicable when we go over global handwriting. So we'll get to that in more detail. Miracast is where you can basically cast your entire screen onto another device. It does require that the device you're casting to is able to receive this device, however. So that's something to be aware of, like Google Chromecast, for example, is something that this would work with. Here's a speed up button. I'm never quite sure what exactly it does. It says it's releasing memory, but I'll have to take its word for it. You can record what you're doing. There's a recording function. There's also airplane mode. You can have you change your touch. You can disable touch toggle or enable it depending on, whoops. Oh, right, touch is out. So it's working. Let's go ahead and click on confirm. Let's bring that touch back. Power management is a shortcut button into the settings that we saw when we went into the settings tab. And then there's your screen rotation button. Down below, you have different lighting options. You have your sliders on cold and warm lighting, but you also have these presets. So I can do lights out. I can go to what they call daytime, which is just a bare amount of cold lighting. I'm not sure when you would ever actually use that. Night has more cold lighting. That's not too bad. Nice minimal lighting. Bedding adds in some warm lighting. And other is going to always go back to whatever the last manual settings that I did on the bars. And so this case, it's 10 and 21. But for example, if I went to, 32 and 36, it'll remember that. Let's go ahead and go back to 10 and 21 because I quite like that. Like so. And then finally, you've got your volume slider here. There are speakers on this, and again, you could connect a Bluetooth device as well, and then you can change the different volume controls accordingly. So that, in a nutshell, are all the settings and UI elements of this Bigme device. Okay, let's start to review some of the applications. A couple things. First off, the Notes app and the Reading app. I'm going to defer for later. We're going to deep dive onto those. This is just a survey of the apps, so we'll get back to those. Also, just know that I downloaded the Kindle and the Kobo apps, this version of Kindle, not this one, and the Kobo, after activating the Google Play Store, which is a fairly easy login process there. All the other applications are native to the device, so those are the only two that I've added since receiving the device. All right, let's just take it from the top. We start off with app management, and this is a pretty straightforward application. This is where you have your do not disturb mode. So notifications don't appear on the bar, but if an app has notifications, it does appear as a pop-up, which you can swipe away. This do not disturb could turn those off so they don't pop up. You can see how applications are impacting your battery. And there's a couple other toggles here as well, but generally it's a pretty standard application management app. There's a translation app where you can load a document and it'll translate it for you. Let's take a look at the list of target languages. So whatever document you put in, it would theoretically translate it into one of these languages. I haven't tested that myself, so I don't know how well that works, but there is an app here for that. There's their cloud app. Again, I'm not signed into the cloud, so I won't go there. The browser app is a pretty straightforward browser experience. Now, I do want to point out how app optimization works. This is a good time to do that. So let me go ahead and swipe down. I'm going to click on the Eink Center. And you'll notice we have this new section called App Optimizations. Let's go ahead and click on that. Okay, so in this one, there's a number of sliders that are specific to this app. And one of them is the DPI setting. And I find this particular slider really useful. So let's take a look at the extremes. And by resetting it, by the way, it's going to kick me out of the app. So just be patient for that. But let's set this all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so you notice how everything got really small. Let's go ahead and do the opposite extreme. I got really large. I should point out, by kicking out, it's still in the app, but if I was in a web page, let's go ahead and get into YouTube, for example. And then I changed the DPI. That's what I mean by kick me out. It would take me back here. But a very useful setting. So if you go into any of the applications and you find that the text is too small, that's where you can make it a lot larger. But it's a standard browser. There's a calendar app. The calendar app does record some of your activity, but only activity that is related to either the note-taking or using their reading app. So I was in Kobo, for example, for some of these days, and you don't see it here on the calendar at all. You can also create notes and put it on the calendar here as well. There's a camera, and again, there's both a front and back facing camera, and it's pretty standard. There's not a lot to see there. I don't know why you'd want to use the camera app, to be honest with you. There is a separate application for scanning documents. So you would use that as opposed. So this is literally only for pictures. They have their own Chat GPT application. I should point out that you can also, let's go to the tutorial. We'll agree. I'm not setting up an account. And this one also has a draw function. That's interesting. So this has some images, and you can see again some of the Chinese characters, but this will handle English just fine. You can also download ChatGPT, and I haven't done any type of comparison between this and ChatGPT, but I found this is a perfectly fine chatbot. So if that's something you're interested in, it's kind of a nice tool, but nothing that remarkable. They have a dictionary on here. You have to download the dictionary, which I've already done, and you just do a standard search, and then it'll do an internet search, like so, right? So then I can click on this Wikipedia, and it takes me into that Wikipedia entry. So nice little dictionary feature there. You have your Google Play Store, exactly as you'd experience it on any Android device. I'm not sure what the difference is between these Kindle apps. Pretty sure they're pretty much the same. Oh, so I signed into the other one, and it already recognizes me on this one as well. Interesting. Okay. Kobo app, which I do recommend, and there's one key feature, by the way, is that, remember the cover has page turn buttons, as does the stylus through Bluetooth, but those buttons don't always work. Now, the Kobo app allows you to allow for volume up and down as a page turn function. So by making that setting, I am able to use the covers buttons and advance pages in the Kobo app. You can't do that for the Kindle app. So those page buttons that come with the cover don't always work. So yes for Kobo, no for Kindle. In maybe a more frustrating fashion, as we'll see later, the reading app actually has a couple different versions depending on the file type that you're opening. One version, the more robust one, does allow for the page turn buttons to work. The other version, which uses comics as an example, does not. So just something to be aware of. There's a library button here, and this can scan your document. So I've downloaded all of these documents onto the device, and so you can see those here. None of these came natively with the device. This is the application where you can move files onto your document. Now, in the past, Bigme devices have allowed you to connect to USB-C and drag and drop files from your computer. I wasn't able to get that to work here. What I was able to get to work is the Wi-Fi import. And so because my computer and this device are on the same Wi-Fi network, I was able to click on this button. It gave me a QR code, but more importantly, it gave me this URL address. I entered this URL address onto my computer, and then I was able to drag files fairly easily. So it's just a step more difficult than just connecting the device, which I would prefer, but it was perfectly fine to move files over. I had no problem with it. Meeting Record is an interesting application, and what this is basically is that you can create a session, and you can basically create different agents in the session, and you can have them speak in their own voice. And then if you collect enough samples, then in the course of the meeting, this device would do a transcript and know which speaker is speaking at that point in the meeting. I've played with this a little bit. It seems pretty good, but I haven't tested it extensively. What I will say, though, is that when you're using that function, if you're writing notes on the device, the scribbling of the notes is such that it actually makes it difficult for the device to hear. So that is a challenge. So I wouldn't use this to transcribe a meeting while taking notes on the device, but if you wanted to use it just to transcribe the meeting, that might be an option worth considering. They have a music app, and so you have to download the music files in this place. It's pretty straightforward. The navigation ball is very sophisticated. I don't use it, so I've turned it off. But if I turn it on, you get this little ball here. You can also change the size of it. If you click on that, then all the keys, there's 9 in this case, show up, and these gives you little shortcut buttons. And those shortcut buttons are all represented here. So if I click on any of these, then you see the range of things that are available to pick, including none. So instead of having a fan of 9 buttons, I can have this just be like 2 buttons or 3 buttons. It's completely up to me. And let's go to the second page. those are the remaining options, and all the keys can be customizable. So it's fairly powerful. The button itself, if I long press and hold it down, can move, although you can see that it will snap to whatever the closest side is. So if you like that feature, there it is, but I don't, so we'll turn that off. Okay, again, we'll go back to the Notes app in more detail later. The Office app reads Office documents. So you can see you can read a doc, Excel, or PowerPoint file, but it doesn't create them. There'll be an app, but we'll get back to that. So this is just a reader. OneNote is what you think it is. There's pretty interesting technology they use with the global handwriting and how that relates to OneNote. And we'll do an example of that down when we talk about global handwriting. Here's online TTS, which I think... those are the language options there. So I haven't used this app myself, so I can't speak to it. Let's go ahead and go home. Scan document is what you think it is. You just click on this. It's pretty straightforward. New, and then you can just create. Like there's my phone. You just take a picture. And it does have OCR, which I don't find is particularly... It's been a hit or miss in my experience. Oh, but it got the date and degree. So, and then you can export it. As either a PDF or text file. Okay, there's a couple places where you can actually change the screensaver. And again, this is the default screensaver here. So one of the places you can change it is with this app called Screensaver. And this allows you a couple different options, including you can create your own, with or without a clock, and without text. There's another option. So there you go. We've been through settings, exact same as the settings button that we started with. Storage is basically just your file structure. So it'll start off with these groupings of files, right? So here you can have all your documents are gathered here, including some documents that are included. So you have some Chinese documents this device comes with. You can have pictures. I don't have any pictures in the device. Oh, except for the two I just took. So there's those shortcuts, or you can actually just go into the folder structure itself and drill down to your documents. Like so. And there's different options in terms of how it's viewed. If you're using your SD card, that's what the external storage refers to. Okay, there's a little task list app. It's pretty straightforward. So, won't go into too much detail there. All the tutorials I'm Xing out of is available here on the user guide, so you can see a listing of all those tutorials. We have voice translation, which you have to log in for that. So this is where you can actually create Office documents. So here you can create a Word, a PowerPoint, or a spreadsheet. But you can also download Microsoft Office, on Android, the mobile versions of their apps as well. They have their own mail client. So you can log into that. And they also have their own photo gallery. But I don't have any images, so it's empty. And that's basically a quick overview of the apps available on the device. Okay, I want to go a little bit deeper into something we kind of covered very briefly, which is the global handwriting feature. So if I bring this drop-down tray down, click on the global handwriting, like so. I then have the option of turning this on or off. So I just turned it off, and now I'm just turning it on, like so. Now when you turn it on, there's 3 different modes. We're going to get back to that in just a second, and we'll go through each one. But I just want to highlight that you've got 4 different pen options, which is pretty consistent with the note-taking app. The missing option that I wish was here is the highlighting option. But regardless, you do have 4 pens. You do have eraser functions as well. If you pick a pen type, you can pick any of these colors. We'll focus on red, and we're making a line width 3 in this case, and that can go all the way up to 5, or obviously down to 1. Okay, so the first mode is really synonymous with OneNote. So this allows you to write in OneNote, and then it translates that into the writing in the app. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and tap out of here. We'll launch OneNote. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and erase that. So you've got some pen types up here. These are in OneNote. So I'll explain the importance of that in just a second. Okay. All right, so the global handwriting is writing in red, and then that gets translated into whatever the setting is in OneNote. So let's go ahead and pick black. I won't worry about the formatting of it, but if I wanted to, I could click it again, and you get some options around color and thickness. But this is kind of a black pen. Whoops. So you can see it initially is drawn in red, and then it converts that into whatever the setting is in OneNote. So red for global handwriting, black for OneNote in this particular case. I could easily just match the colors. So we can go with, I think that's red. It's kind of hard to tell here. So that's global handwriting, and then that converted into whatever the OneNote font is. And the same thing with the eraser, which is what I just started with. So now I basically have a scribble eraser where I can start like this, and then it'll just erase everything. So it's a way of interacting with OneNote. So that's really the purpose of the first part of global handwriting. Let's go ahead and get out of this. And we're going to go back in. But now we're going to skip over this read mode and go into picture mode, like so. The picture mode's pretty cool. So you can see it's underlined. All the same settings apply. So what picture mode allows you to do is basically take whatever you have on the screen to write on it. So that's what the global handwriting is allowing you to do. It's allowing you to write on top of the screen. So let me show you what I mean. So if I turn off global handwriting, like so, okay, I can't write on this screen. The screen was not designed for pen input. But then I turn global handwriting on, and I've got it in picture mode. Now I can. Now, in order to make use of this, however, because this writing will go away when I turn off global handwriting, is you then go back into the swipe down bar and you do a screenshot. Now, just pressing the screenshot creates this image. I don't have to do anything else. This image is actually saved onto the device. I could do some additional functions based on this pop-up window. So here we've got, I can edit the image. Let's do this again. Okay, I can also crop it. I can save it into a folder, or I can share the image from here. and pretty much the options will be based on the type of apps you have downloaded. Most of these are native apps, but a couple of them I've downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and get out of global handwriting. And if we go into storage, we go into picture, those are where our two images are stored. So here's the first one, so you can say as I can. And then the second one, I have the writing down the middle. So you can imagine the application of this. Maybe you're in an app and you want to make notes, or maybe you're in the browser and you want to, say, hey, look at this, circle something, and then you can send it off to yourself or whoever. That's the value of this version of global handwriting. It means that you can use the pen input anywhere on this device. The limitation, of course, is that you only can use it one screen at a time. Okay. Now there's a third version of global handwriting, and this I think might have the most utility. And we're going to go ahead and we'll start off actually by going into Kobo Books. Go ahead and launch that. And we'll go into the Status Game. Great book, by the way. Highly recommended. But just picking this book at random in this particular demonstration. It's taking a bit to load. Normally doesn't take this long. There we go. Okay, and so we're in the end notes of that. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and reactivate global handwriting, like so. Now in this case, we're going to go ahead and use what's called this read mode. And the read mode is where I can actually do annotations that I otherwise could not do. So again, let me demonstrate. If I just go into the book, there's no way to do pen input, like so. See, you do it for navigation, but you can't draw. So let's go ahead and go into global handwriting, turn it on, got read mode. We'll go ahead and keep the ballpoint with the red at 3 point. So now we get this new kind of navigation, and we can create, we can either use an existing file or we can create a new one. Let's go ahead and create a new one. I'll just call it status to make it easy, like so. Perfect. We'll go ahead and click on status. Okay, so the way the navigation buttons work, this one I rarely use, this top button. It goes backwards in the file. I'll explain what that means. This is touch navigation, so if I'm writing, let's say I want to write over here, I might turn that off so that it's not picking up, and I can say, I can still do my drawing. But if I want to swipe, then I'm going to have to turn that back on and swipe accordingly. Now you notice that annotation went away. I didn't store the annotation. So let's do that again. I'm going to go ahead and hard code that. I'll just point to that, just randomly. And then I'm going to click on this down arrow here. And that essentially takes a screenshot of my annotation and the page, and then it advances to the next page. So I'll just put a little thing like that. See? Now, if I want to go into where those notes are stored, there's a couple ways to do that. The first we'll show you right here is within the global handwriting. So if I click on this hamburger, like so, it'll go into the notebook. Remember, we took 2 annotations, and so there's 2 pages here. And there's the first annotation, and there's the second annotation. So it's almost similar to the screenshot. The difference being is that each page is stored within a notebook, and then it keeps a continuing notebook of those annotations. Obviously, by doing this, I'm taking an image of copyrighted material. So this would obviously only be for personal use. But the idea is that if any book you wanted, if you wanted to go in and make annotations, it would save the annotations. Now the annotations are separate from the book, right? They exist separately in this note file. But what's nice about that is that you do get a summarized notebook of your annotations. So that's kind of nice. So the device without global handwriting, when you go into apps that are third-party apps like Kobo, like Kindle, like Google Books, and so on, Barnes and Noble, they don't allow for much in the way of annotations, or they might have their own simple annotations, usually with like highlighting. You might be able to put some notes in them. It depends on the app. But with global handwriting, you don't have any limitations at all. You're able to save your annotations. You can use whatever pen styles you want. Again, the big limitation for me is that there's no highlighting function. That would have been super cool. But outside of that, it's a very powerful functionality that is unique to the Bigme devices. I've only seen this on either Bigme or on devices where Bigme clearly is contracting out their software. Like the Rare2 device used the global handwriting. The Pocketbook X used Bigme software, so that had some form of global handwriting. But other vendors don't have this. Like Books doesn't have this. And of course, you don't get this with Supernote or Remarkable. So it is one of the great features that Bigme has that does set them apart. Let me show you the other place you can go to look at your notes. We'll go ahead and get out of global handwriting, like so. Okay, and let's go into the Note app. All right, and this is the normal, files in the Note app. But if you click on this icon right there, like so, there's two other sections. This first section relates to the notebooks that you do in split screen mode. And then the second one are the notebooks from global handwriting. So if we click on that, see, there it is. There's the status notebook. I can click on that, and there is my annotations. So that's where you'd find them once you get out of global handwriting, if you want to refer to them later. I think it's an incredible functionality. I think it allows, when you buy these devices, especially if you're new to this kind of world, I think people hope that, I can just take my stylus and write on anything. And one of the disappointments, of course, is you can't. It doesn't matter what device you have for the most part. There are limitations to when you can write on the device and when you can store that. So global handwriting is, I think, a very cool and powerful way of getting around what has been otherwise a limitation in annotating on books, and being able to highlight things that you want to call attention to. In the case of the screenshot functionality of global handwriting, it's a very powerful function on this device. Okay, let's go a little bit deeper then into the note-taking application, and that's right here in this app. So we'll go ahead and launch that. A pretty straightforward interface. So right now it's based on the most recent file that's been opened. In this case, I just have some examples, but if I create a new file, and we'll just go ahead and get out of this real quickly, we'll save it like so, and you can see that file then shows up right here. If I wanted to create a folder, I would click on this, and then I can create just a folder, like so. Okay, now we've got a folder. If I wanted to move something in that folder, I could long press on any of the files and go move, and just move that over, like so. So, pretty basic, folder file structure. Any notes that I've deleted are located here in your delete file, and if you delete them from here, they go away forever. And as we talked about earlier, this icon allows you to go into either where you've got your split screen notes, if you've taken any, or any global handwriting notes are here. If we go back here, there's a search functionality. It's not clear what the search functionality does. I've tried searching on titles, I've tried searching on text, I've tried searching on handwriting, and haven't seen any luck with any of those things. So I'm not clear what that does. If you click on the check mark, you can do kind of global. So I can move, for example, all my notebooks into a folder by just going check all. I can also export the files from here. Let's go ahead and look at those options. There we go. And it will automatically create a PDF, and then you can go into that PDF to move it off the device and what have you. Okay. Oops, wrong button. Okay. And then here's just another icon to create new notes. So let's go ahead and look at the functionality within a notebook. The first thing is you do have up to 5 layers, which is nice. So I can just keep adding layers like so, and then it reaches it reaches that maximum. I can hide any layers anytime I want by clicking on this eyeball. So if I click on that, the layer still exists, but you can't see it. You can lock the layers in, you can move the order, or you can delete them. In addition to the layers, there's templates. There's 19 templates on this device. Here are what they call the Office templates. And then they have about, they have 9 or 10 rather of these other templates, which have your basic lines and squares. So I think 19 templates in all, so it's a decent selection of templates. Here I'm choosing the horizontal line 3. You can increase your canvas. You can increase it into these 4 different options. You also have the option to trim. There's a lasso feature, so let's take a look at that in action. I'm going to go ahead and so we'll click on lasso, circle that. A couple options here. So you've got this pop-up bar, so I could either copy, paste, or cut the lasso. I can also delete the whole thing by clicking on the X. If I click on the squares, that allows me to move it across the canvas, like so. And then finally, the circle allows you to rotate it. So we'll go ahead and do that. Like so. And we'll just get rid of it. You do have the ability to zoom in or out, and there's a lot of functionality, quick buttons to zoom in, or you can manually create the zoom. That, in effect, makes the canvas a little bit bigger, actually. There's this toolbar over here, so if I click this toolbar button, it goes away, but we'll bring it back. You can export, and those are the options with either a QR code, a PIN, a PDF file, or a PNG file. Remember that a PNG file is one document at a time. So if you had multiple pages in the notebook, the PNG file, let's say I had 3, then there would be 3 PNG files that would be created if I exported them all. And then your basic undo and redo buttons. Over here on the bar, this can actually expand out. So those are all the options that are available there. First option I'll highlight is you could go ahead and just pin this to the side so you don't have to see it. So you have 2 options to make it disappear. Either click the toolbar and it goes away, or you click the toolbar and mount it on the side. We've got 5 pen trays. These are all customizable. So you can click on this once, click on it a second time, and then you've got your 5 potential pen options, your color options, your line width options. So let's go ahead and just kind of walk through what those look like. So this is a pen. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Let's go to pencil. Maybe I should do this too, just to give a sense of the scribbling. Okay, let's go to brush. These are all black and 2-point font. We'll go ball pen. And then finally, highlighter, and I love the highlighter on Bigme devices. Oops, didn't pick it. There we go. We'll pick this blue. I think in addition to global handwriting, it's one of the unique features that surprisingly isn't matched by other competitors. And so what'll happen is I'm going to draw basically a dash line and it'll convert that into a highlighter. So let's just kind of show that, I guess, right here. Like so. If I do a diagonal, then it creates a block. It just makes a really nice highlighter. Let's go ahead and pick a different color. So, finally we'll pick yellow, or lemon as it says. So just really love it because the highlighter actually goes in the background. It doesn't obscure any of the writing or the text. So excellent implementation, and this is why I wish it was in the global handwriting because it's so powerful, but unfortunately it's not the case. A couple of erase functions. You have a track eraser, which is just whatever, is basically a stroke eraser. Range, so you circle something, it'll go away. Or you can just clear the entire layer, like so. And if you had multiple layers, that option was there as well. If you want to add a page, you can do so here. See, I added a page there. Here's another place to do templates. It's the exact same templates that we saw when we were looking at the layer. You can add shapes. So 5 different shapes, a number of line styles, colors, and width. That's all available for each shape. You can insert a photo that's stored on the device. You can insert text. So if you want to do that, you can use the on-screen keyboard, or that might be where a Bluetooth keyboard might be useful. You can delete the page. And then finally, with more, you can do optical character recognition, which I find is, we'll give that a try in just a second. You can encrypt the file, rename it, or eliminate touch control if that's an issue for you as you're using the file. But let's go ahead and let's try OCR with my very average handwriting. Okay. Oh, so you have to be online to use it. Let's go ahead and get online. Give it a second to connect. We should be good. Let's see if it works. Okay, not so great. Wait, we were on page 2, that's right. Okay, so this is what we wrote. Let's try OCR, and that's what it thought it was. Let's give it a fighting chance. So let me try that again. Let's try again in print. See how well it does. Okay, it's okay. I don't think the OCR is particularly powerful. I would not rely on that on this device. It's not a strength in my mind, as we just saw. Anyway, that is basically all the functionality of the Note-Taking app. Okay, we're going to end our tour with the Reading app. And the Reading app is for any files that you load onto the device. So you wouldn't use it for, anything that you download through the Kindle app or the Kobo app or any other app. These are just devices that you actually bring on to the device itself, and this is how the device reads those. So there's a number of file types that you can read with their native reading file. We'll just go through a few of those. Now, one thing to point out is that you won't see the Reading app anywhere in the list of applications. So how you get into the Reading app is that you actually just launch a file and then the Reading app launches automatically. There's a couple ways to do that. You can go into the library, and so these are a bunch of files I've loaded in. Not all file types are included here. This is missing some of the CBR, which is a comic book file type. So sometimes you have to go into the storage, and you can either go into one of these links, shortcut buttons, or you can go right into the directory itself. But if we go into doc, the other files are there. So there's a CBR file right there. There's also some files that come on the device. See, there's another CBR file. These are all preloaded by Bigme. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with a PDF file. So we'll just go ahead and load. We'll load this, the 2022 Q4 consolidated financial statements. Go ahead and just click on that. And so you have a couple options. The reader on this application is called XReader. So we'll go ahead and click on that. Okay, and now we're in the document itself. Now there's two versions of the reader that can come up, and it's based on the file type. So this is one version. This is the more complicated of the two. And you'll notice that there's a little progress meter down below. There's the time and the battery, and there's also this pen tray here. And this pen tray is just as customizable as what we see in the Notes application, although they did drop the pencil from the pen types. But other than that, it's pretty much the same, and you can customize these accordingly. But you do have the highlighters, so that's perfect. I'll go ahead and click on that. So it operates a little differently than the Notes, but there it is. We'll go ahead and go in the pen. So we'll do this one. Go ball pen, blue. Okay, so you can go through and annotate your documents. Now, one of the difficulties of a PDF on an 8-inch screen is that it was really made for a much larger screen. In fact, PDFs can natively be seen without any changes to the zoom or the flow of the document on a 13-inch device. So this is quite a bit smaller than that. There's a number of tools that are available to change the flow and to make it easier to read. So we'll just quickly show that. So by tapping on this, there's a lot more options that are available. We'll start down below. This is the progress bar. But you also have your table of contents, if there was one in the document. And that would include if you created any bookmarks, those you set yourself. We'll show you how to do that in a bit. If you had any annotations, see we have some that we created on the first page, and any handwriting, we had that as well. So the table of contents allows you to access to all of those things. And there's a number of functions available for each, including sharing. Anyway, as we keep going, we come to the progress bar. I'm not going to go into all the detail because we would be here forever, but there are different ways to display the pages. You can do zooming, you can allow pinch zooming, you can change the focus on how you want the page to render, whether you want it to stretch from top to bottom or side to side, and what have you. You can rotate the document, and so on. You can change your contrast elements if you want to make it darker, like so. They only have one navigation option, which is reflow, and then you can go into split view if you wanted, and probably the most common way, thing that you would use with split view is having a PDF document on one and then a notepad on the other. But you could have, some other documents as well. Okay, then you have some functionality up here. You've got, whether you want to turn touch on or off. This button will add. So I just clicked off the pen tray. If I click on this, it will add it back. In theory, there it goes. Sorry, I'm a bit of an angle, so that tapping isn't the device's problem. It's me because I'm falling short of it. There is search functionality. Again, I find the search functionality variable. I have seen it where the search functionality will pick up text in the document, but I haven't seen that work consistently, so it's not a powerful search functionality. And then you have some additional settings, and this is where you can get another place where you can go into your refresh settings. You could also do the drop-down bar and do them as we saw earlier in the video. And then they have some file settings here as well. If I wanted to bookmark the page, then I would do it right there. See, that page is now bookmarked. And if I go into the table of contents, there is the bookmark. So fairly powerful. It's not as powerful as the books reading app, but it's still very powerful. Lots of functionality available. And this is a fairly large document. Let's go ahead and go back to the progress bar. See how many pages it is. See, it's 93 pages. So fairly large doc. Now there's another version of the reading app which isn't as complicated. And so, for example, CBR files will open in that version. So let's take a look at that. We'll open up this file. Okay, here we are. So it starts off the same. You've got your, well, in this case, you've got your time and your battery. If we click on the center, you can see that the options are a little bit different. So the progress bar is a lot simpler. You do have a table of contents button, which this document doesn't have, and that would only be instead of having your your handwriting or your bookmarks. This is only the table of contents that's inherent in the file itself, which in this case is blank. You have this where you're able to view each of the pages, so you can quickly go to that page by clicking on it. Like so. Okay, you can change some of the fonts. Here's the contrast, and then whether you want to rotate the image. Actually, it's not the fonts, my bad. Here you have the the refresh rates. Again, you can either do this here, or we could have done this from dropping down the bar. You can turn touch controls on or off. You can annotate. I don't know why you'd want to, but it is possible to do annotations on comic books. And there's different options if you click on the palette. Again, it's a little bit simpler than what we saw in the other version of the reading app. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. All right, and then, oops. And you can refresh the page there or bookmark the page. Which functions a little bit differently, because as you recall, when we bookmarked earlier, we just clicked on the bookmark and it was created. Here you have to actually name it. So a little bit different functionality. Why they have two different versions of the reading app, I'm really not sure. My only guess is that maybe they knew that something like a comic book file, you're not going to be doing nearly as much in terms of trying to change the flow as you would with a PDF. And so maybe they wanted to go with a simpler interface as a result. I'm speculating, but that would be my guess. You can pinch and zoom. You can't go cell by cell. That functionality is not available as it is in an app like Kindle, but we can pinch and zoom like that, and it's okay. Now, I'm obviously going over the functionality fairly quickly, but I'm just trying to give a sense of, there's the progress meter, by the way, trying to give a sense of what it can do as opposed to going into the painful nuances, because that would take forever. But if you did have any particular questions, let me know and I'll try to answer those. Okay, so that is basically the overview of what this device is capable of. Okay, so that ends the visual tour. So we've now gone over the hardware in the first video. We've covered in depth the software in this video. The next video is going to focus on the review of the device and how it compares head-to-head in performance with the Books Tab Mini C. So we'll wrap up the series with that video and hopefully walk away with an answer to the question of which is the better 8-inch color e-ink reader. All right, until then, I will see you next time.